closely monitoring the situation. The Associated Press reports the federal government is expected to significantly loosen federal mask-wearing guidelines today, meaning most Americans will no longer be advised to wear masks in indoor public settings. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Live and local conversation for the Ohio Valley continues shortly, here on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
February is Children's Dental Health Month, so make sure you make an appointment for your child to visit an Ohio Dental Association member dentist. ODA member dentists are located throughout the state and are dedicated to providing the highest quality dental care, are bound by the highest ethical standards, and have access to superior ongoing education and training. On your next visit, ask if your child's dentist is a member of the Ohio Dental Association and American Dental Association, so you know you're being treated by the best. To find an ODA dentist in your area, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases, and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, the number 4, ohio.org.
Stretch your dollar with 11% off everything at Menards. Save big money on your next project right now. We offer the world's best selection of molding with over 1,000 different sizes and styles in stock. Choose from over 400 ready-to-finish woods, primed and water-resistant options, and pre-finished options. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through February 26th. Savings are a mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts. Thank you for riding with the Watchdog. Live and local, just the way you like it.
Hello, everyone, from the Watchdog. I am the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Friday. Mostly cloudy and cold with a high near 43. An overnight low of 24 under mostly cloudy skies with a couple of snowflakes mixed in. And then you'll see mostly cloudy skies for your Saturday with highs in the lower 40s. Have yourself a great day, everyone, from the Watchdog. I am the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Good morning.
Can I ask you one question? Ask away, dear boy, ask away.
What do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm something of a famous radio personality.
He is out of this world.
I mean, can you imagine an extraterrestrial disc jockey?
What about the show? It's out of this world.
I'm getting ready to blast.
Getting ready to blast.
Ready to blast off.
3, 2, 1, blast off.
It's showtime.
On FM, on AM, online, on demand, and on video. We are where you are. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe is here now.
Well, let's see. Still looking at about 35 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. 35 degrees here at my home studios in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling. And 35 degrees at the Robinson Auto Group Studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Looking for... Well, the temperature not to change much, actually, throughout the day today. We do have still officially a flood advisory for creeks and streams in effect. It's not a warning. It's not a watch. It's just an advisory that we need to be aware of. It was supposed to end at 8 o'clock this morning, but it's continuing. It's not too rainy outside, as I look at it here, but we had a good bit of rain come down overnight, and that's created some of the problems. So We've had a lot of territory covered this morning. We have a lot more to get to in this hour. John McCabe will join me in a matter of minutes, and we'll talk about some of the statewide and regional and local stories that made news this week. Everything from the Highlands to the death of Fred Abdallah to mask mandates and more. So we'll get into that when John is here a little bit later on this morning. We also were talking last hour with Mark Curtis from Nexstar Media about this public transit funding bill that is kind of stuck in the House of Delegates. It is a bill that is federal and state law right now in West Virginia are at odds on this issue. There is $16 million a year in federal transportation money that is available to transit authorities like the Ohio Valley Regional Transit Authority, but the federal money comes with a stipulation that union members have to have their dues taken out of their paycheck. And last year in West Virginia, they passed the Paycheck Protection Act designed to diminish the power of unions, and so that's not legal in West Virginia. There is a bill pending in the House that would create an exemption for transit employees so this transit money could come through. There'll be a discussion about it and probably a vote on that later today. But that's, to me, it's a pretty big deal because I still think that transit is a critical issue. Again, I don't know that we handle transit the best way possible here in the Upper Ohio Valley. We still have great big buses running in big circles, and I don't know that there aren't some other options. But public transportation is vital, and we certainly can't afford to lose basically a third of our funding. So we talked about that with Mark Curtis from Nexstar Media last hour. Biff and I were kicking around this bill passed by the Senate yesterday, but opposed by the Coaches Association and the SSAC. The bill would allow students to transfer from school to school without having to sit out a year. The idea by the supporters of the bill is that, well, kids want to change school because they want to go to a school that has a better math program. That was a specific example given. And they shouldn't be penalized in sports because of that. The Coaches Association, Bernie Dolan from the SSAC, say, wait a minute, this is going to create a problem. This is going to create, what they said, effectively a transfer portal for high school kids. It's going to lead to more recruiting, more player shopping at the high school level, and we don't want it. But the Senate passed the bill yesterday, so we talked about that. A lot of other stuff coming up this morning as well. And why don't we get into all of this stuff right now with John McCabe, newspaper editor here in the Upper Ohio Valley. Good morning, John.
Hey, Howard. Good morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm actually interested to learn more about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Have you heard about this yet?
We did hear that. ABC News said the story at the top of the hour.
Pretty interesting.
The new nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
The name was bandied about right after Breyer announced his retirement. Right. So there were a couple of stories about it, but I don't know enough about it to make any kind of an opinion on it. What do you know? And as you said, I guess our job is to find out and report to other people, basically, right?
Yeah, I truthfully know very little other than, a little bit, as you said, when it first came out that the president was going to go in this direction with hiring or with nominating a black female to the court. So, yeah, you're right. And now it's going to be a matter of learning a little more about her. And, I'm sure the confirmation hearings will be, we'll glean a lot of information out of that. But, I think when you get to that level, I've always kind of had the thought, and granted, I'm no constitutional expert, but when you get to that level, these judges all are, I would think, equally qualified to hold that position. When you've been a judge and a constitutional law expert in essence, that's what a judge does. So I'm sure she's more than qualified, and I'd be curious to see how her nomination process goes and how quickly it gets done.
I don't want to get in. I'd put a caveat there that not all nominees meet that criteria. I think Amy Coney Barrett didn't have much of a judicial background, for example, but I don't want to go down that road. I think you're right. We have someone here who seems to be qualified. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, again, I have to do this from memory from when this first came out, a month or so ago. I believe she's already gotten almost unanimous Senate confirmation for her current federal appeals court position, right?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
So, one of the things that I always find interesting is how will folks in the Senate approach this if she's already gotten, again, I believe it was near unanimous. It was certainly an overwhelming vote of support for confirmation at the federal appeals court level. You certainly should take a second look. I don't quarrel with that, and there is a difference between the Supreme Court and the federal appeals court, but still, it would be hard for me to see how someone who has been significantly confirmed by the Senate before would run into too many problems now. But we're in a strange world.
No, that's what I was just thinking. It's easy to think that if she did, but now politics really begins, unfortunately. And what was an easy process when she was just a lowly federal judge, now that she's going to be a lot higher level federal judge. There will, politics becomes involved in it. Hopefully it's not, we need to get back to some civility. We can have vigorous debate on these issues, and we should, and her background should be fully explored. But I think is what we saw over the last couple Supreme Court nominations, and I don't care what people think of them personally, but it turns into a clown show. And that's kind of where our country feels like it's at right now, where there's just one big sideshow to distract us from the important issues really going on. And hopefully, I'm always optimistic that we always have opportunities to reset and go back and again have vigorous debate, but at the end of the day, agree on what's best for the country, as opposed to, as you just said a minute ago, well, Amy Coney Barrett's not very good and not very smart or not very educated or whatever. Obviously, she's a Supreme Court justice, and we should show her a little more respect. And I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying that's we get that that tends to be the tenor of everything we talk about today.
Well, I was trying to qualify your. No. I was trying to qualify your comment that.
Sure.
That the implication that basically everybody who gets nominated meets good qualifications. And I think that is a generally true statement. I just think that Amy Coney Barrett did not have a lot of, her judicial experience was limited compared to many others. I don't want to get into that, though.
Sure.
Here's something, and I think you and I can both agree on this, and we've watched it happen. When someone steps into the judge's robes, at least after a period of time, they tend to become more judicial. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes there maybe are appointments that are political appointments, or people know where they come from politically. But I find, in general, now there are exceptions, and I could name them, and we could fight over them. But in general, I find that when people put on the robes and get a little time under their belt as a judge, their mindset changes. They become more judicial. They tend to approach things, well, frankly, more like a judge.
Yeah,
and I think we've seen that around here with local judges.
Yeah,
we've
exactly.
seen it, I think, at the Supreme Court level.
Yeah, and that was exactly the point I was going to make. I mean, you even see it with at the circuit court level. You get there and you probably get a better understanding of some of the things going on, and and also the enormous responsibility that we give our courts in helping to decide right versus wrong, or it can't be it's easy to think, but it can't be easy to sit up and preside over a trial and hand down a sentence that's going to put somebody in jail for the rest of their life. No matter what that person did, that still is a pretty strong that's a life-changing decision that's been made, whether the judge made it or whether a jury made it or whatever. But still, the judge presides over that. So no, I think if you have a conscience, it would have to, weigh a little bit on that. And I know from years ago talking to Judge Arthur Recht, outside of the courtroom, and it was just always such an enormous responsibility that he took very strongly and took very personally, and at times he would chastise, but I don't feel that he ever said some of the things he did out of malice, but more kind of internally as his way of justifying why he was going to put this person in jail for 20 years, etc.
Yeah, Judge Recht was, in my mind, one of the best jurists we've had around here. I was, of course, he was on the Supreme Court for a while.
Right.
I have had huge respect for Judge Reck. John, you probably can name names as well. I'm not going to name names, but here locally, I have seen judges sit on the bench and rule on an issue of law that I know they don't really agree with, but they look at the law and they go, this is what the law requires me to do. I mean, I know I could cite examples, and I bet you could too. But that's what happens when you become a judge. You then have to set aside those personal feelings and your politics as much as you can, and look at the case before you and the law before you, and rule that way. And again, I can think of several examples where I've seen individual judges that I know deep in their heart are going, man, I don't want to do this, but they do because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the, I guess one of the, I'll call it a challenge, but, particularly if you've been a public defender for much of your career, as Ms. Jackson was, Ms. Jackson Brown was, most of her career was spent as a public defender before she became a judge. So you bring a different mindset of not so much in working the system, even though that is what you do, but also in, spending the career of advocating for clients no matter what, of being that client's voice before the court and vigorously defending them, and now you're on the other side. So you're obviously going to bring different life experiences to that job. So if she does, it does get confirmed, she will bring a different perspective on a lot of issues, and that's good. Again, we don't want 9 people who think exactly alike in terms of on every issue. Now, they should think alike in terms of what the Constitution says and how it's interpreted. But again, you can bring different life experiences to that, which will give different, just going to give a different experience. And she's going to use different experiences in her life to help shape how she sees the laws and rules on a lot of cases that come before the court.
Ketanji Brown Jackson is also 51 years old, so she is part of the what's the verb I want to use here? Youthening?
Yes.
The youthening of the court. I mean, it has been for a long time, and it has always been perceived as sort of this panel of aging old men who, with white hair and barely, but the court is getting younger, which means a couple of things. It brings a younger perspective to things. It also means that a lot of them will be around for quite some time.
Yes.
At 51, if she is confirmed, she will probably be here for another 20 years at least on the court.
That's almost a new pre-qualification. Those over 55, you might as well, not even hope to be. Definitely, if you're over 60, that because as the culture wars have invaded every aspect of what we do and politics, President Biden and his handlers are looking at this and saying we need someone who's going to be there for the long term, not a 10, long term is not 10 years or 15 years. It's, again, as you said, someone who's going to be there until they're, 75, 80. So, she, again, could have a 25-year career on the court. And kind of the same for Brett Kavanaugh, the same for Amy Coney Barrett and, Neil Gorsuch, not too far from that. So that's kind of the new way to look at this as politics on the court and who gets to appoint which justice. That's become a new issue.
It's going to be interesting. I'll be curious to watch this whole thing play out. Just a couple of days ago, I saw a number of folks posting on social media, a number of political type folks, suggesting that the timing of the Ukraine invasion was bad for the Supreme Court situation because they were afraid that with all the attention that the administration has to put on the Russian invasion in Ukraine, they may set the Supreme Court nominee on the back burner. Clearly, they have chosen not to do that. In fact, I'm thinking they may want to get this up and get it out and clear it off before the Ukrainian situation gets even more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's interesting times we live in. There's no doubt about that, Howard. Interesting time.
9:25 in the morning on the Watchdog Morning Show. Let me do a break, John. I got a lot of local things that are worthy of at least a, sort of a checklist review of some stuff. Everything from mask mandates to the Highlands getting a new look, to a couple of personality issues that are worthy of our discussion. We'll do all of that coming up in a minute or two. John McCabe is here with me on the Friday Roundtable. It is 9:26 here on the Watchdog Morning Show.
Hey there, Dave Weekley here. Metro News Hotline presents...
In a rugged new 4Runner. Visit your Toyota dealer today or go online to buyatoyota.com, the official website for deals. Hurry, offers end February 28th. Toyota, let's go places.
Caesars Sportsbook is bringing the profits to the people. Get boosts, bonuses, daily promos, and now you can also get a feast, as in a $250 Uber Eats gift card. Download the Caesars Sportsbook app and register with code RADIOEAT. That's one word. And when you wager $50 or more total, you'll get a $250 Uber Eats gift card. Yep, just wager $50 total. Spread it out over multiple bets if you'd like, and $250 for Uber Eats is all yours. So let the bets begin. Bet college hoops, NBA, hockey, golf, tennis, you name it. And with Caesars Rewards, every bet you place, win or lose, brings you closer to redeeming amazing benefits, tickets, free stays, experiences, and more.
Must be 21, offer valid in West Virginia. Only new customers with eligible promo code only. Real money wagers only that have minimum odds of $200. $250 gift card redemption coded steps to redeem gift card will be sent via email within 72 hours. See Caesars.com/promos for full terms. Void where prohibited. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly.
Caesars Sportsbook, your app is ready. Download it.
You're never more than 30 minutes away from local and regional news with ABC News every hour. Plus coverage from Ohio, West Virginia, and WTRF-TV at 1/2 hour here on The Watchdog.
Here's a look at the Ohio Valley local news week in review with newspaper editor John McCabe and Howard Monroe.
Got a lot of stuff I want to get into with John. The death of Fred Abdallah this week. 20th anniversary of Bob Heron's time in the city of Wheeling. I want to take a minute or two to reflect on that. We're also going to be talking about the Highlands and mask mandates and a few other issues that are on my agenda here for local news and regional news to talk about. But the continuing coverage from the Ukraine is still with us this morning. We're following the daily activities there. It's not a pleasant place to be, the Ukraine, as Russia continues invading and as we continue looking at how to respond to that from this country and as a NATO member. ABC continues their updates for us this morning right now.
Russia's military is closing in on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, where defense volunteers Marine Colonel and former State Department official Steve Ganyard, an ABC News contributor, says Russia's military strategy is apparent.
It's clear that the Russians are not intending to hold territory. They're moving very quickly. They're on tracked and wheeled vehicles. They're fighting where they have to. But right now it appears the Russians are racing to get to the leadership of the Ukrainian government.
Russia's foreign minister said they're ready for negotiations after Ukraine surrenders. President Biden will take part in a meeting today of NATO leaders to discuss the situation. Brian Clark, ABC News.
West Virginia.
Not compassionate for our
Judiciary Committee Thursday and now heads to the full House. A Charleston man will spend up to 15 years in prison for stabbing a woman numerous times last year. 55-year-old James White was sentenced Thursday. The incident happened in the 800 block of Central Avenue in Charleston last September. The woman he stabbed was taken to the hospital and survived her injuries. Governor Jim Justice will provide an update at his coronavirus media briefing at 10:30 this morning. You can watch it live at wvmetronews.com. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Charles Trump says the difficult thing with child custody issues is one size doesn't fit all.
It is unique. There is no other case that is exactly like it. Each case has its own specific facts and circumstances.
That's Trump speaking before the state Senate voted to approve a bill Thursday that would establish a presumption of equal custody in divorce cases. The bill now heads to the House. From the Metro News anchor desk, I'm Carrie Hudasek.
Last place, New Jersey. Yes, one of the worst teams in the league. Beat the Penguins 6-1 Thursday night. The Devils pounced on the Penguins early, scoring 3 goals in the first 7 minutes of the first period. Not a good night for the Penguins. By the way, the Pens have now lost 3 in a row. In those 3 losses, they've been outscored 14-5. And it doesn't get easier for the Penguins Saturday as they host a very good, a solid New York Rangers team. Well, ESPN has released the latest power rankings for the NFL's new year. The top 5, Kansas City Chiefs number 1, followed by the Bills, Rams, Packers, and Bengals. Where are the Steelers? Number 18. By the way, all 4 AFC North teams are in the top 20. Remember this, rankings are for debate. You can have some fun talking about them, but the rankings mean absolutely nothing. College basketball, interesting matchup, very interesting matchup in Morgantown. The West Virginia Mountaineers will host the 20th ranked Texas Longhorns. Texas will enter the contest 20-8 overall. West Virginia, 14 wins, 14 losses. Remember, Division II, Saturday afternoon, Wheeling University, one of the best rivalries in college basketball. The Hilltoppers of West Liberty, ranked number 2 in the nation, will visit the Wheeling Cardinals. Be there. Gates open, 12:35. I'm Bill DeFabio on sports, and we are the Watchdog.
Hey, man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it. Hey, Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing.
With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time. Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
CA House Music has all the gear to make your music legendary. With all the best gear, including Fender, Epiphone, Yamaha, and more, CA House will have you rocking in no time. Get the most for your money with everyday low prices. And we meet or beat internet pricing. Play before you buy and let our product specialists help you pick out the instrument that's right for you. CA House Music, supporting local musicians since 1872. Play music for life.
Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 83 want to thank the owners and contractors of the Ohio Valley for using their locally trained workers to help build for the future. Local 83 helps design, fabricate, and build the gas infrastructure for the oil and gas industry here in the Ohio Valley. Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 83 is 300 members strong and growing. They also do residential, commercial, and industrial work on both sides of the river. For more information, call Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 83 at 304-233-4445.
The timeless sounds of polka live here. Join us 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays for the Polka Showcase with Rich Biella. Sunday mornings never sounded so good.
Miss a part of the show? Want to hear a segment again? Check out our podcast page at watchdognetwork.com. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
9:37, 23 till the hour, about 35 degrees at the home studios at the Robinson Auto Group Studios, downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Still have a flood advisory in effect. It's not a watch, not a warning, it's a flood advisory. We just had a lot of rain overnight, and so keep an eye on creeks and streams. We are talking about the Ohio Valley Newsweek in Review and the general Newsweek in Review with the Friday Roundtable. Newspaper editor John McCabe and I are here. John, one of the stories that had everybody paying attention this week, I don't want to say talking maybe, but was the death of Fred Abdallah, Jefferson County Sheriff for a long time.
Yeah, it definitely was a shock, maybe not the right word. He had been battling some health issues, but what a strong figure he was in the local area. As we write in an editorial that we're running tomorrow. He really was kind of the sheriff's sheriff. He was, I think, even among local law enforcement, what they aspired to be. I mean, his job was his life, and his life was about protecting his community. He gave everything he had for Jefferson County. I got him early on in my career when I worked in Jefferson County. Got to spend some time with him here and there, and then if he was down for he was down a few times at like at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Wheeling on different cases, and he would always pop by and visit for a few minutes with us here at the paper. And but just a man who wore his heart on his sleeve. If you were a dastardly criminal, he let you know it. If you hurt kids, he would, that to him was very personal. And I can still recall just over the years and working with him and seeing him on on television. Kids were again, crimes against children were the things that really got to him. He would was as apt to cry on camera or in person as anyone. And even you think back when Judge Braziz was shot here, it's been almost 5 years ago now. He took that very personally. So just will leave a huge void. His son, Fred Abdallah Jr., who had been the probation officer in Jefferson County, takes over and has big shoes to fill, as obviously on a couple different fronts. But what a loss for this region. There's just no other way to put it. Fred Abdallah was again the leading law enforcement officer in our region, and but so much more than that.
It is interesting, as you say. It was, use your phrase, I like that, the sheriff. I mean, he was the epitome of the I'm going to get the criminals, hard hitting, and he was not a desk bound sheriff either. He was out and about, I mean, he did, sheriff's work out in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So he was that tough, hard-bitten sheriff. And yet, as you said, we have all literally seen him cry over crimes against children.
Yes.
I mean, he was just. Now, you would see him cry, and afterwards you could see the almost anger in his eyes that whoever committed this heinous crime, I'm coming to get you. But he was, woe be to those who committed crimes against children.
It's funny, the things that stick with you, Howard. 20 years ago now, I mean, it's literally been almost 20 years ago this summer, a woman from Jefferson County took her kids to the Jefferson County Fair, and it was a real bright, sunny day. Do you remember this? And they got severe
I'm laughing
sunburn.
because it's exactly what I was going to bring up as well. Yes, go ahead.
And, he was, I don't think I've ever seen as much outrage, yet compassion from an individual as he expressed that day. And if you recall, I think what's interesting about that is he took a lot of heat from that nationally, a lot of heat. Because everyone thought he overstepped and he was being too mean, and ultimately in the end ended up being proven right because of some other things that happened a few years later with that family. But that is just one of many. I mean, he was involved. If you think about the things he was involved with the Amish beard cutting case. Of course, that was in his county in Bergholz. Was that Glenn Mullet? I believe his name was. He just. A lot of interesting cases went through Jefferson County during his time, and again, he handled them well. But if it was against kids, it really brought out, it impacted him the most personally, but also brought out the best in him, I think, as a law enforcement officer.
And I think your point about the sunburn case, the kid that was so terribly sunburned at the fair, a lot of people said, as you pointed out, this is overreaching. Your job is not to worry about whether parents don't put enough sunscreen on their kids. But he cared. I mean, and it angered him. I remember that. We had him on the show, in fact, to talk about that. I didn't have him on the show a lot, but I had him on for that one in particular. And I mean, no, you can't. You don't do that to kids. And I mean, to him, it was child abuse.
Yes.
And it was interesting. But you're right. He caught a lot of flack, especially nationwide. It hit the tabloids, hit some of the national, news, and the sunburn chasing sheriff in Jefferson County. But by golly, he went out and did it. I think a public viewing today, funeral services tomorrow. I think.
Yeah, 1 to 7 today up in Toronto, and then tomorrow would be the second part of that process. But so I mean, it is an open public viewing for anybody who wants to go up. I believe the time is 1 to 7 today.
It will be a different county with a different sheriff.
100%.
No question about that. Let's talk about another long-termer, though. Let's come down closer to Wheeling. Wheeling's city manager was noted for his 20th year in office as city manager here in the Friendly City by council recently.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to believe that it's been 20 years since a truly great city manager in Wheeling, Will Tarani, left, and that's just it really is hard to believe. Will Tarani left in 2001 and went to work for Oric shortly after they announced, and I can recall this guy coming in, Bob Heron, Robert Heron from Conneaut, Ohio, if I recall correctly, and he came in at again what was a really interesting time in the city. There was a lot of momentum happening in some ways that really kind of got kicked after 9/11. Oric happened, but of course he came in right at the time the outlet mall was switching back or undergoing changes, and kind of that big vibe and big energy that was hoping to make that happen started to wane because of, again, turmoil on the global scale. And Bob took over the reins on that. I think did a wonderful job. And truthfully, I have the utmost respect for Bob Heron. I think I hope all the citizens of Wheeling do. He's been an excellent city manager for 20 years. He has stewarded the city's budget. He has followed the directives of his council when he's been asked to do things. We all hear, well, there's nothing going on in Wheeling. I mean, there's always a lot going on in Wheeling. It's a lot most people don't see or understand. And again, on the broader spectrum, government has a role to play, and it's not always in spurring the private sector to act. They can do things, to make things happen, much as we're seeing now with the streetscape. But I'll give Bob Heron all the credit in the world for doing a wonderful job over 20 years. A few bumps along the way, and, undoubtedly a few bumps along the way, both personally and professionally, but has been a steward of the city for a long time, and follows, again, what has pretty much been a good line and a good succession of city managers who have run the operations of Wheeling fairly well.
With a couple of exceptions, and I do want to mention them in a minute here, but he's been a no-drama manager. I mean, you don't hear a lot about Bob Heron. He does his job. He does it well. We don't have a lot of financial problems in the city. He manages the budget extremely well. When issues come up that require funding, he just quietly says, okay, here's where we get it, here's what we do. He is very apolitical. I mean, he has political thoughts in his head, but he doesn't play out his politics. He does what council directs him to do. He's sometimes, I think he disagrees with decisions that have been made, but he just does what he's supposed to do and does it well, and does it, I won't say quietly, but just no drama. It's just the day in, day out issues. Now, there were bumps along the way. It would be unfair to talk about this without mentioning he had the issue with alcohol a couple of years ago that seems to have been dealt with and is behind him now. He almost left the city once. What's that been, John? About 5, 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think even a little more than that. Yeah, he went. I'm trying to remember. It was a city in Michigan, and I'm trying to remember exactly which one it was. I don't think it was Flint, because nobody, you wouldn't wish anybody on having to go in and inherit that mess that Flint turned out to be. But it was,
who was that job?
No, but it was, he had looked at, somewhere in Michigan had courted him, and Wheeling, I think, did the right thing. They made the right call. They matched the offer he got in Michigan, kept him here in Wheeling, where, I truly believe he wanted to stay. And it's been a, again, outside of a few bumps, and the DUI obviously is probably the biggest one that everyone remembers. But he's been a stoic city manager. Really, when you think, from our standpoint, Howard, and what we do, what I always liked about Bob Heron, Will Tarani, and I always liked, Will's a good friend, and Will was an open book. He would tell you anything. Bob Heron makes you work. He's not going to give you anything unless you ask, and that's good. I mean, that makes you, makes all of us better. I think it makes the community better in terms of, getting information that people need to know. And again, when we compare and contrast, Will Tarani to Bob Heron, it wasn't at all uncommon for Will Tarani to be in his office slamming his phone down and getting angry, and you don't hear that from Bob. I'm sure he gets angry, and I'm sure he gets frustrated, and and doesn't agree with things sometimes, but he goes about his business. And it doesn't. I wouldn't want to play poker against Bob Heron. Let me put it to you that way. He's got a good poker face. And
Dave Palmer said at council this week to Bob Heron, he said, "You asked me once, why do you think I'm going to be a short timer?" Palmer said, "Well, for the last 15 years, we've had 4 city managers, so we don't expect him to stay very long." Which is a good point. When I was actively reporting on City Hall, we went through a lot of. I mean, I'm not saying it was a revolving door, but people did not stay for a long time. They put in good years and moved on. I heard a couple of them put in bad years and moved and moved on. But Bob came and has stayed. Which, John, comes to a question maybe. What happens? I mean, someday Bob Heron's going to retire.
Yeah, Bob is. Bob is probably late 50s, I think, maybe a little bit older, but in that range. And you're right. At some point, he's going to retire, and Wheeling will be. They've got an assistant here now, Bill Lanham, who has been, I would say, very low key during his time in office, which has now been, basically was brought in when the city manager had some of his issues, and but has been relatively low key in how in his public role. Let me put it that way. Whether that would he would be a natural fit to succeed Bob Heron at some point, or if they look outside, I think looking outside with Bob Heron in 2001 and early 2002 was definitely the right move. Wheeling needed a fresh set of eyes from outside to come in and kind of help work through some things that were going on and take the city in a in a slightly different direction, not major shift in thinking or philosophy, but even things as simple as introducing a rainy day fund or what they call a budget stabilization fund for those times when when you need something so it's that'll be something down the line at some point that the next council most likely, at least if not the one after that, will have to start really considering a what is post Bob Heron. But after 20 years, I tell you, he has not worn out his welcome, which is good, and I think that's the sign of a good city manager. Is he's not a guy who rubs people the wrong way and quickly wears out his welcome.
I want to quickly say, as you just did, there's no indication Bob Heron's ready to retire or leave or anything like that. We're simply commenting on the fact that he's been here 20 years and done a great job. He will be hard to replace, is my point. And I guess if you are council, and you're right, I'm not saying this current council, but in another handful of years, you got to start thinking about a line of succession. I would think. How do you, because Bob Heron has really held this city financially, organizationally together unbelievably well, despite some of the things you read on social media. He's done a tremendously good job, and it is going to be difficult to someday replace him. Again, I want to stress, we're just discussing this because he's been here 20 years. I have no indication that he's thinking anywhere close to leaving. I'm just saying he's done a heck of a good job. And again, a very no drama, nice, cool, under the radar kind of guy, keeping things stabilized. Absolutely. All right, I had some other stuff to get into, but I got to move on. John, always good talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
Same here, Howard. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Newspaper editor John McCabe this morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. 7 before the hour. Let's switch over to the Big 7, WTRF TV, and Bob Westfall is here. Good morning, Bob.
Morning, Howard. How are you?
I guess I'm okay this morning. It's almost quitting time. I'm hoping my wife. Honey, did you bring me any food?
How was that ham and cheese?
She said no. That was a good sandwich. You can't beat the Hillbilly Snack Shack, I got to tell you.
I don't think I've ever eaten there.
Really? Oh, you need to. Oh, if you like hoagies or subs, those kinds of things, they got a great calzone. We were just really driving around for something to do in the afternoon and drove past it, and I said, let's get a hoagie, man. But I'm going to tell you, this is my way always. I always order a whole hoagie at Hillbilly Snack Shack, and I tell them, wrap half of it up for me and give me half to eat because it's way too big. But I know I've got one ready for this afternoon now, so it was good.
Cool.
Hey, listen, I want to thank you for alerting me to that public transit story that we talked about briefly yesterday. You guys had a good story on it last night, and we had Mark Curtis on this morning talking about that. That's a story that had really flown under the radar, and I'm glad that Mark and you guys kind of put it front and center because I think that was a big story.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. It's going to affect a lot of people. A lot of people in the area use the buses to get, to doctor's appointments, to work, let alone anything else. So that's a huge deal if they're going to start cutting back and things like that. So
I said earlier this morning, a lot of people look through the window of a bus and see only a couple people in there, and they say, oh, nobody rides the bus. But if you drive around town, look at the number of people standing at a bus stop waiting for the bus.
Right.
And you begin to realize how many people really do depend on it to get them where they're going. It's amazing.
Right. It's huge.
What are you working on today, though?
So a couple things we're working on today. Obviously, we've got some weather. Weather Service Radio just popped off a warning. Belmont County looking for some flooding. Nothing substantial yet. Did mention Neffs and some different areas in Belmont County. So pay attention if you're out on the roads and you see some deep water. Let's try not to drive through that. So Aaron's upstairs right now I think the rain, for the most part, has kind of rolled out of the area. So we'll continue to update that here in a little bit. We're working on something called Senate Bill 181. Talked to Ryan Well, talked to Sheila Moran with the suicide prevention line. This has to deal with funding for the suicide prevention line, among other things. If it fails, it's a huge deal. It's a crisis dealing with mental health, which has become a huge situation. So waiting on the legislation. Catherine tells me it's over an 11-cent tax or a fee that they want to tack on her. So we'll have an update on that. We did talk to Senator Weld, who's been working on getting this passed. So we'll have an update on that as well. Obviously, the situation in Ukraine continues today. We're going to talk to a couple local residents who have either families are from that area or still have family in the Ukraine. So we're going to get local reaction on that invasion that Russia has going on right now. So we'll update on that. And then the other thing we're working on is Scott Lewis, Belmont County, to be sentenced. Man was found guilty, almost 30 counts of child pornography. So, yeah, one of those stories. So we'll have that. And then, of course, the public viewing for Sheriff Fred Abdella begins today at 1 o'clock. So we'll have an update on that as well. So good, the bad, and the rainy.
Yeah, exactly. I would anticipate there will be long crowds at Sheriff Abdella's public viewing today.
Right, the public viewing and then the funeral and everything else tomorrow's private. So I agree. I would think, matter of fact, as I drove through Bridgeport this morning, I saw looked like they were getting a caravan together with Bridgeport and Belmont County Sheriff. So it looked like they were about to get ready to head out as well. So yeah, I expect a huge crowd up there. It was quite a legend, to be honest. So
yeah, that's a great word to use.
Yeah,
and he left a big legacy. And once we get past his death and move a little bit past it, what happens next? Again, I think 37 years as a sheriff, right? I mean, that's
37 years as sheriff. He also served as an investigator before that. Two years in Vietnam. That alone is amazing, And so yeah,
it's going to be a different Jefferson County with a different sheriff. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Bob. Let's appreciate your time today. Have yourself a good weekend. Everybody over at the Big 7, enjoy yourself. We'll be watching things at noon, 5, 6, 10, 11, 5:30 statewide show. Mark gave us a little preview of some of the stuff he'll be working on today. And always at WTRF.com, the award-winning website, and take it in your pocket with the Storm Tracker 7 app and the News app. Can't go wrong with that.
Before we check out real quick, we are up for West Virginia Broadcasting Award for the website. And Catherine Guyon is up for her series on Veterans Voices, so we're really excited about that. I think we find out the 29th of March.
Great.
26th. And then Brenda Danehart. No, you can't say that. Oh, okay. Brenda says, hi, Howard.
I heard her say hi, Howard. Yeah. All right.
That's it, guys.
I got you. Well, anyways, good luck on those things. You guys deserve it. I got to run. We'll talk to you Monday. Have a good weekend, Bob. And Brenda, too. All right, Biffy, I got to get out of here. I'll be back Monday morning, 7 o'clock, another go over to the big gig. Are you back with me?
Back Monday, ready to start another week.
We'll keep on doing it till we get it right.
That'll be a long time.
Indeed.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
She serves on the D.C.
Okay, Biffy. We made it through again. Made it through another day, but another week. All right. Well, I guess Nancy didn't bring me any food, so I was kind of disappointed in that. She'd been out, and I thought she was going to bring me food. I got no food. Well, I have my other ham and cheese hoagie. I guess I could eat that if I have to. All right, everything okay up there? I always like to check. All right. Have a good weekend. You're off from us, so you can enjoy yourself. And I don't know what I'm gonna do, but probably play video games with Teddy again. I don't know. Anyway, have a good weekend. Appreciate your help as always. And if you need me, call me because I'm always around. Otherwise, I'll talk to you on Monday. All right, bye.
The Ukraine. There's been no confirmation of this from Ukraine, but Russian troops have entered the capital, Kyiv. ABC's Ian Panel is there.
The head of Ukraine's armed forces announcing in the last few hours, today Ukraine needs everything. All procedures for joining are simplified. All you need is a passport or an ID, and quotes, there are no age restrictions.
Pope Francis visited the Russian embassy at the Vatican. The Vatican says he expressed his concern about the war. The 85-year-old also canceled a weekend trip and will not take part in Ash Wednesday observances because of acute knee pain. New guidelines expected today from the CDC to tell officials to move away from case counts regarding COVID-19 and focus on strain to healthcare systems. You're listening to ABC News.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses